Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to pay the bills. They got a win over the New Orleans Saints on Sunday, and the whole crew is here to break it down. Jake Mike here with Mike Bunt, Mike Partham, AJ Sapolsky, and Carson Hayek. As I mentioned, the Bills had a win over the Saints on Sunday, 31-19. A lot to talk about with this football game, though. It was a closer than expected effort. There's some sloppiness around. I'm sure we all have specific complaints that we want to get to about this game. So let's start with Mike Bunt and go around the horn. What was your biggest takeaway as the final buzzer hit and the Bills landed with a 31-19 win over the Saints?
The biggest takeaway is that there is still room to grow and get better offensively and defensively, and that it's a nice feeling to have that when you're finding yourself in the middle of a 4-game winning streak where you've defeated 3 straight teams by double digits. Because you know what? They didn't play their best against a team they were expected to blow out, but they still won by 12. They still scored 30-plus points. And guess what? Now they can work on those things that they need to improve on and hopefully get better over the course of the season. I'm not upset. I'm not pissed off. But they clearly have some holes, and we're going to have some stuff that we need to talk about, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is we should lower our expectations on the Bills defense, specifically the run defense. They're doing all right in pass defense. I believe they're ranked first in passing yards per play overall. They're ranked 30th in rushing yards per play overall. And even when you account for a DVOA, they're still 19th. And in particular, there was at least 2 or 3 plays where there was some pretty bad tackling out here. So I got to hit the Bills with the Lombardi clip.
Everybody's grabbing out there. Nobody's tackling. Just grabbing, everybody. Grab. Nobody tackling.
Everybody's just grabbing out there. Especially, I think there was Bosa had a clear shot on Rattler, and he just sort of got juked out of his shoes. The Kendre Miller touchdown, the first one, I think Trey, Taylor Rapp, and Taron Johnson all missed tackles, and those are like reliable vets that you usually count on. So there's a lot of reinforcements waiting in the wings, whether it's suspensions or injuries that we got to get back. But the Bills' defense is obviously a weakness that I think teams are going to look to exploit in the run game. So we got to look for that going forward and not have too high expectations. And then, of course, there's the safeties in the secondary in general. But, we should expect the Bills to need to score 30 points from here on out. What about you, AJ?
Yeah, offensively, I do like what they continue to do running the ball. James Cook with another 100-yard game. Allen used his legs when he needed to down the stretch. So the run game, in my opinion, is still, one of the tops in the NFL. Now, I looked at the teams they played and where they rank against the run. The Jets already, the Dolphins. They're all bottom of the league. So one thing I do want to see, and it was funny that I forget who was it, Nance and Romo who announced the Chiefs and Ravens game, but they talked about, Reed and Mahomes talked about that they have to hit a couple deep balls, and I think that really helped the Chiefs with Xavier Worthy coming back, kind of breaking up in the defense. So offensively, I think the Bills still need to develop. Like everyone's like, oh, they can do it, just the teams aren't letting them do it. It is more and more if the Bills keep continuing to run the ball, they're playing these better run defenses. New England, for example, they give up 75 yards a game or 77. 1 sec. And that's tops in the league. So you're going up against a really good run defense this week. So I want to see, just a couple to put on film to show that they can do it, because I feel like they haven't really put that out there yet. There's been some nice scheme plays for Kincaid where they, put the running back or receiver in motion to the right or left, and Kincaid leaks down the sideline. But that's one thing for the offense that I want to see them fix, is just show the ability, because I think that'll scare defenses even more. And the Bills might become too predictable down the stretch if they can't really, show any vertical threat down the field. Defensively, Partham hit it on the head. It is the run defense for me. And it's also their, I don't know what, like, gap integrity, would you want to call it? Carson probably knows the right term, but
That is what that is called, yes.
For, like, the defensive line when the quarterback's in the pocket. There's just too many times with this defense where whatever quarterback they're playing, and I know Fields and Lamar are elite runners, and even Tua, I thought, moved pretty well. And I thought he even moved well last night against the Jets. He's moving a little bit better this year. The Bills need to get better, obviously, on third down. They rank 30th in the league in third down percentage this year, so that's obviously not good. Or sorry, not 30th, 25th, but still bottom of the league with third down. So they need to be able to get the quarterback down and, not allow him to scramble, because Rattler was doing it. That's how they, I think they stayed in the game a couple of times and extended drives was Rattler using his legs on third down. So defensively, it's the run game and containing these quarterbacks in the pocket and making sure that whether it's, the linebackers at the second level or the D-line at the first level, at the line of scrimmage, that they get them down. So that's kind of my takeaways, but all in all, I'll take a win. They're 4-0. Like Mike said, a lot to work on, but it's September, and hopefully they can get those things fixed here moving forward.
Well, for starters, I think I agree with a majority of all you guys said. First of all, 4-0 is a very difficult thing to have happen. You can see it's just us and the Eagles, the only two teams that are currently undefeated. So 4-0 feels great. With that said, though, you brought this up. Like, if they could find that next gear, the Bills could really, really be scary on both sides of the ball, quite frankly, too, because Sunday was sloppy. With that said, though, I think a lot of fans were expecting a blowout type of game, which is a fair expectation when the spread is, minus 15 or 16 and a half or something like that. So to me, though, I don't get caught up in that as much. When you look at teams around the league, like, for example, everybody looks at Kansas City and how dominant they've been. When they played 2022, let's say, when they were on that run, they played Houston Texans team that were fighting for the number 1 overall pick. Houston took that team to overtime. KC was lucky not to lose that game. They played the Raiders last year, for example. They went off of a fumble. And then you have a game against the Panthers where Bryce Young is just starting to pick it up, and that game came down to the wire as well. Like, these games type of happen around the league to other dominant teams as well. It's a week-to-week league. I think the margin of talent is a lot tighter than what people think. So for them just to get a win, I was thrilled with, because it was a rare time I was at the game, so maybe it was why I felt like this. But in moments when we're playing an inferior opponent that's like the Saints, I never really worry about losing. I will say in the fourth quarter, I was worried about losing that football game. And if Brandon Cooks catches that football, who knows what happens the rest of the game, right? So overall, though, 4-0 is 4-0. It's better to have these type of games in September and October, and hopefully you can find that extra gear come December and January when it really matters. But great start to the season, 4-0. Schedule continues to stay, I guess, easy, although these next few opponents I have some sort of concerns about, specifically the Patriots. But 4-0, you got to be happy.
I don't know if it's just I'm getting lazy, taking the things for granted. Even if they would have scored that touchdown, Carson, I don't think I would have been worried. I think the Bills would have came down, scored, clamped it up, whatever. But that's just also, maybe that's hubris of what this team is and what it can be. And maybe I'm excited to have this conversation tonight about, like, what we are specifically concerned with the defense. We talked a lot about the offense last week, and I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on the offensive struggles or that lack or whatever misconceptions going on about the offense in general. But yeah, Carson, you made the point that this is not, it's not a game where, and it's not a league where the talent level is that vast, right? Like, these are still NFL players. They can come out and play any Sunday, and a team on their backs, especially after the performance they had in Seattle, to come out and show the fight that they had shouldn't have been surprising. It did surprise me a little bit how much they were able to stay effective in this game against the Bills, especially being able to run the ball. But Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller are a good tandem. The Bills have had struggles with scrambling quarterbacks. I feel like as long as I've lived my life, they've had struggles with scrambling quarterbacks. Yep. And Rattler is a guy who is, listen, I don't care about Rattler's 0-10 is not equal to Deshaun Kaiser's 0-15. Like, Spencer Rattler has some talent. He's got some moxie to him. That team just had some issues, but it was a really impressive and sound performance from a team who got completely dismantled last week in Seattle. So kudos to the Saints for coming out, knowing how big of underdogs they were and putting up the fight that they were. But that being said, we've talked about it on this show a lot. I've talked about it a lot. The Bills being their own worst enemy in a lot of these losses the last couple of years, a lot of games that they shouldn't be in. And that was a lot of the case in this game, whether it be offensively with some of the play calling, which I'm sure we can get into, or defensively with some of the issues, specifically stopping the run as much as anything else. Now, I'm still of the mind that Ed Oliver, Matt Milano, having the having Michael Hoyt, having Larry Ogunjobi in on this team eventually in a couple weeks could, not saying it will, but could solve a lot of the issues that they're having defensively, specifically in the run game, because it's just, they clearly had, Sal Capaccio said over and over again how big of a plan they have for Michael Hoyt in this defense. We saw the impact that Ed Oliver had week one, not guaranteeing that he does. It's been a struggle for Ed to put back-to-back elite performances together throughout his career, but he's also the engine behind that defensive line, and he really is vital to it. So I don't want to pass a lot of judgment onto what this defense could be, but we got to look at it as what it is, right? So where are you at? And we'll start with you, Bunt, again. We'll go around here. Where are you at defensively? What's your biggest concern? Are you overall concerned for the outlook of it for the whole season? Are you just concerned about what you've seen this far? Do you think that they can make fixes, or is this going to be same old Bills defense that we're worried about heading into January?
I mean, it's kind of the opposite of what the Bills defense has been when they've had good years. Normally they get off to great starts. They're really good in the regular season. They hold quarterbacks down. And then later in the season, come playoff time, things kind of fall apart. They get discovered, and then they don't have an adjustment at that point. I'd rather be exposed early in the year than be exposed later in the year. Now, granted, it'd be nice to say it would be good to never have to worry about struggles at all. But if we're looking at this defense right now, where were the heaviest investments in the offseason? It was the defensive line. And where are we really not seeing some of those people? It's the defensive line. You have Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt both out. Now, before the season started, Ogunjobi, a lot of people thought he might be a cut candidate. Well, now when you have TJ Sanders struggling mightily to open the season, while you don't want to see that, that kind of gives you one of your answers. Ogunjobi needs to be on this team because TJ Sanders is not ready for what he's facing. And maybe he will be later in the year. But at this point, he's not. He's graded one of the worst defensive tackles in the entire NFL. But on the flip side, you discover Deion Walker through these reps that he might not have gotten otherwise can play, and he can hold his own. And if he keeps developing, he might be a guy that can show some flash later in the season. We haven't seen Landon Jackson. We haven't seen Michael Hoyt. Michael Hoyt, I think, is a big part of this defense. And I know that me and AJ have disagreed on this on the past. We don't know what his overall impact is going to be. But what we do know is the Bills love his versatility. And the one thing that has been lacking in previous years is a lot of quarterbacks going up against the Bills. They say, well, you pretty much know what they're going to do against you. Michael Hoyt brings in that unknown where he can drop back in coverage. And he's not just your typical defensive lineman that really is a stick that can't do anything. Like, he can actually make an impact that way. You can bring new looks. You can catch teams off guard. They're trying that stuff with lesser players right now, and it's not necessarily working. When Michael Hoyt comes back, that might make a difference. You look at the secondary. You have a youngster like Cole Bishop, who for all intents and purposes is a rookie trying to find his way at safety. It takes time in the NFL to figure things out, especially for a McDermott defense at safety. And his partner, Taylor Rapp, has been playing some of the worst safety in the NFL this year. So he's not exactly getting help at that spot. But we saw Cole Bishop come up with a big play that changed the course of the game in that moment. They allow a touchdown. They go to halftime down 17-14. Who knows how the second half starts? So Cole Bishop came up with a big play. I trust that Cole Bishop that we see in December is going to be a different version than what we see in September, where he's getting his first NFL game action, and maybe things are happening a little bit too quick, and he's not processing everything at the rate that he needs. We need him to play more and make things second nature. Now, it's interesting because the biggest thing hurting the Bills right now is the run defense. If you look at pass defense numbers, they're actually ranking near the high levels of the league right now overall pass defense, which is funny because the eye test appears that they're not doing great in that area, but EPA per defensive back, they're 8th in the league right next to Kansas City. So their defensive metrics in the passing game aren't that bad, but a big part of that is because teams are running at will against them. And normally the thought process is if teams are running at will against you, your defensive line is just getting blown up. But the graders out there, including Pro Football Focus, and I know we're hard on them, and it's a weird relationship with them. They don't hate the Bills' defensive line. Where the massive amount of hate on this Bills defense goes to is linebacker. Right now, Joey Bosa is ranked in the top 10 grades on PFF for defensive ends out of over 120. Greg Rousseau, despite all the attention on him not getting sacks, is ranked 19th out of over 120. Daquan, for everybody saying how old he is and ineffective he is ranked 8th out of over 120 defensive tackles. Even Deion Walker is like top 50 or top 60, top 50 for defensive tackles. So what that story is saying is that they actually have some potential on their D-line. What isn't so good is linebacker. Dorian Williams is one of the bottom 10 ranked linebackers in football right now, according to PFF. Terrell Bernard, we all love his skill set. We all love what he can do. He has a below 60 grade by PFF at linebacker, and he had a very bad grade last year. I know he got the contract extension. I know he's a fan favorite. He's a captain. He's vocal. He speaks up for the entire defense. He needs to be better. He needs to be better. He really hasn't played to the level that he needs to be. And I know a lot of the smart football folks at other Bills networks, they talk him up. And I do think he is a good player that has the potential to be great. But he hasn't been playing great through 4 games. And if we're being honest, Matt Milano hasn't either when he was healthy. This is a crazy thing to admit. Matt Milano is the 3rd lowest graded linebacker in the NFL right now, according to Pro Football Focus. He's graded like a 32. Like, it's almost impossible for scores to be under like 40. Like, scores under 50 are horrible. Matt Milano is barely even registering a grade at this point with his time on the field. And that's just based on his performance, like not missing snaps or anything. Surprisingly, the one linebacker getting a very good grade is Shaq Thompson. That might be something they might need to rely on a little bit more, because even if he's a step slower, he knows what he's doing. And he's playing at a high level so far early in the season. And a very surprising part is when you look at the defensive backs, obviously Taron Johnson has a good grade, but Trey White actually doesn't grade out that poorly. I know everybody's flaming him, but he grades as a top 50 corner right now. Like, he's not obviously the old Trey White that we're used to, but Trey's actually been serviceable. Christian Benford, though, has had some issues. Now, I trust that Christian Benford will get better, but he's allowed a couple touchdowns this year, and he needs to be better. Going into the season, we talked about him being possibly a top 10 corner, someone that would be a Pro Bowler, someone that could compete for all-pro teams. He's not even close to that level right now. He is playing a step below what we all expected. And then safety play, like I said, the safeties need to be better. But if we want to break down what needs to be better, linebackers, safeties, and one last stat before I toss it to Mike Bartham. The Bills, I think I saw, you guys might have seen this, they might have allowed something like 188 rushing yards on Sunday. 165 of those yards came after contact. It was the 3rd highest total of after contact rushing yards in a game since 2018. Now, I know linebackers, they feed off of what the defensive line does in front of them, and the defensive line has to make things, they have to work together. What I am concerned about this team right now is we talked all about this defensive line and the big investment. Well, the linebackers are going to play like this. It doesn't matter what the defensive line is doing in front of them. And granted, PFF grades aren't the best thing. Defensive line probably has to improve in some areas. But the Bills really need those linebackers to play better, because they have been atrocious. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to talk about it, because calling out Bernard or calling out Matt Milano is something that this fan base has no interest in doing.
Remind me again when Matt Milano got hurt. Was it at the Ravens game?
Jets game.
And
Jets game. All right. So
after the Jets game. But
I mean, we'd have to go back and look at, but I don't think Matt Milano was that much of a liability. I think he was playing above what people were expecting him this year. I frequently saw him making plays.
Mike, it's not about making plays. It's about being in position and being graded on every single play. You can make 1 or 2 splash plays in the course of the game, and if you suck the other 30 plays you're on the field, you're still a detriment to your team. The fans focus on splash plays. The people that are grading these are looking at what your assignment is every single time you're out on the field. And to get a 32 grade, you're not just playing bad. You're not even worthy of being on a football field. So I'm not saying I can back up with my own eyes what Matt Milano is doing. But PFF does have people that know football, that watch football. and let's just say it like it is. I could understand if Matt Milano had a grade of 55 and be like, you know what, he made some plays. Maybe he's playing good, but he's not playing great. To have a score of 32 means that the two different graders that watched you thought that basically for an entirety of your time on the field that you were trash. I'm not saying he's trash, but the people that were grading him are basically saying that in their grades.
Well, I guess there's a lot of debate on and you make a good point about what PFF grades are ultimately about. I will agree on Dorian Williams. People are saying that he's frequently out of position when they take a look at the All-22. He had a big missed tackle on Rattler. People are saying that Shaq Thompson probably should be elevated to third linebacker. Deion Walker had a couple of tackles for loss, so I'll agree with you there that he's been a revelation, I should say. Joey Bosa, after that Ravens game where he looked to be, at least in the second half of that game, was getting some good pressure. Looked like he wasn't setting the edge on outside runs. He would get frequently suckered into the inside when they were running outside. That play, he finally got subbed out on that particular play where he didn't get off fast enough and they got called for 12 men on the field. Speaking of penalties, that was a bit of a liability today because coming into today, I believe the Bills were first overall in penalties allowed, and New Orleans is 31st. New Orleans had 4 for 41 yards in this game. Bills had 11 for 55. Not too bad on the yardage, but the frequency of mistakes was uncharacteristic of what the Bills usually do. Other than that, I just want to point out we mentioned a couple of the scores almost given up. Cole Bishop having to make the great play, and the Cooks touchdown, which basically hit the ground. He almost caught it. The point of the ball basically hit the ground before he could get possession. There was also a Chris Olave juggling catch that went out of bounds on a third down. I think it was in the which half was that? First, doesn't matter. They were basically at midfield at that point, so that's probably a 11, 12-yard gain. If you put that in, even if they didn't gain another yard, they could have gotten into field goal range easily. So that's 17 points total that either the Saints didn't take advantage of or the Bills were lucky to take away from them. So I get it's a 12-point win, but tweak a play here and there in an alternate reality, and maybe we could be talking about an entirely different game here. Overall, defensively, I mean, it's we've been saying before, it's the run game, and it shows not just on the field but in the stats as well. And I'm not big familiar with Ogunjobi's game, but people keep saying that he's going to be a major player for the defense once he gets back. I'm also looking forward to Maxwell Harrison if he can help out with the passing game. Obviously, they're going to have to get him up to speed. It's not just about his injury; it's about integrating himself into the defense because he didn't get a whole lot of training camp time. That's pretty much all I got. AJ, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the defense, like I said, the major concern for me, and I said it in my first spiel about the game and how the Bills looked versus the Saints. I think the Bills defense, the defensive line, I think has been fine. I talked to Mike about it. I think they've been I haven't been disappointed with the defensive line. I think they've been okay. They've been fine. I think they're playing how I expected. Joey Bosa's had some moments. I really think, and I put it out during the game on Sunday, I think Deion Walker is playing at a level that can really elevate this defensive line throughout the year if he can continue to progress, and just his ability to, recognize the techniques offensive linemen are using against him and his ability to, counter those, I think has just been really good for a young player that the Bills took in the fourth round. But overall, Joey Bosa, again, I said he's had some moments, but I also think he's been a liability in the run game when he's been out there. And I think, he's playing a higher snap share right now. I'm sure Michael Hoyt, when he returns, he'll take some of those snaps away from Bosa, and I think he's a little bit more explosive and, like Mike said, versatile. But the defensive line in totality for me, they're fine. Jake mentioned Ed Oliver. I think he's obviously going to make the defense better. Now he's probably coming off a high ankle sprain. And a couple of years ago, he had that same injury, and we saw how much that affected him. So there is a little concern for me there that is he going to come back the same player, fully healed? Now he might take more time, but I hope the Bills training staff takes their time with Ed because they need him back 100%. I don't want an 80% at Oliver next year playing on a little bummed up ankle because I don't think that'll do any good. Steve made a comment earlier about the cohesiveness of the three levels of the defense that I really liked. That's kind of where I'm at. I think the Bills, he says, I just do not see consistent cohesiveness between the three layers of defense. There have been some spot moments, but hopefully they can gel here soon. That's kind of my biggest thing. Whether it's the safeties, the secondary, the linebackers, or the defensive line, I feel like they're just not gelling as a unit. Like there's always a hole. There's always hot take from local evening news. In 3 years, Deion Walker will be the top defensive tackle in NFL. That's definitely a hot take, but I would love if that were the case. But yeah, I think the cohesiveness with the unit concerns me. I know the PFF grades are useful in certain ways, but I think there's more to the story. I don't know. I don't know what's better, the eye test of me watching the games and diagnosing it, or using probably a combination of stuff. But I think the linebacker play has been subpar. Me and Mike talked about it. I think we both agree that Terrell Bernard's a little bit overrated in our opinion. Now, I think he's still a good player. I think he still can make splash plays, but his size, I think, limits him sometimes. His angles to the ball limit him sometimes. So I still do have some concern with Bernard. And I don't think Edmonds, I know I saw Mike Rapido tweet about that Edmonds would fix things or be the best linebacker. Well, that might be the case. Edmonds in Chicago, if you talk to Bears fans or smart Bears people, they're thoroughly disappointed with Edmonds, and they think he still is terrible against the run. So I don't think really that would be a fix in terms of the run defense, maybe in the passing game, but the pass defense has been fine. But it'll be interesting to see when they go against quarterbacks that aren't like a Spencer Rattler or Justin Fields, quarterbacks that can actually throw the ball and have the ability to, not saying Spencer Rattler can't, but I'm talking about like the upper echelon quarterbacks, which like a Michael Penix, like that'll be interesting. And Drake May on Sunday, that'll be interesting to see how the pass defense looks. My dad hoping Bishop's interception can really build his confidence. It was a tremendous play. Yeah, that's where I'll end it with the safety play. I've been worried about safety before the season. I didn't think they did enough to address it. It's been a major concern for me. And now their safety that people have talked about being an above average safety or an average starter is playing with one of the worst safeties in football. That makes me even more concerned. So I'm worried about safeties. I think the corners have been okay. I think Trey White's played better than I expected. I think Christian Bedford can hit another level, like Mike said, but the safety play for me, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde were so important to what the Bills wanted to do defensively against the run, especially when you have, you're a dime or a nickel defense, you're playing, more defensive backs. That's very important. So I think Bishop and Rapp have to take their game to another level. And I'm hoping, like Mike said, Bishop can take that next step and be a different player come December with those more reps, and Taylor Rapp can hopefully, figure it out.
I agree. You guys brought up a lot of the main points. I guess I'll just touch on some minor stuff that I've noticed as well. As far as the safety play, I don't think it's a crazy statement to say that Cole Bishop has been a better safety than Taylor Rapp this year. We saw some flashes out of Rapp last year. I'm still somewhat high on him, but really 3 of the first 4 weeks it has to be better. He's a guy who's extremely physical. When he gets downhill, it seems like ever since he put that Guardian cap on, he's just an absolute menace. So when he's able to get in the play, he's a playmaker. But this year, it just seems like he's been out of position numerous times. Against the pass, it's never been really his strength. And so for me, Cole Bishop, like, you want to talk about a guy who can tackle. This is an underrated part of Cole's game that I think a lot of fans miss. Like, the kid can tackle. He can hit. Technique's phenomenal with him. And I've always respected that about his game. Even last year, in the minimal time that he's played, I thought, there were a few plays that he did get burned. But I thought for the most part, the kid can tackle. He's a sure tackler. And he got stiff-armed week 1. But besides those, like, few plays, to me, he's been a little bit more impressive. The fact we don't hear his name a lot since week 1, I think that's a good thing for Cole. Another thing, too, with the linebackers, Shaq Thompson, Jake can attest to this, I almost wrote an article this week on him, but I held off on 1 week. I think he's been an incredible player, a good pickup, very under the radar. At first, when we signed him, I didn't think he'd maybe even make the roster. But when preseason came around, he was a guy that was consistently on the bench. That kind of showed that, hey, they had a lot of confidence in him, and it's shown off. And then the guy that I want to talk about real quick is Dorian Strong. He came in for Trey White, a little bit of spot duty. I believe I forgot the specific stat, but I think it was 15 pass attempts.
That's
something
correct.
Like that. Yes, and he wasn't targeted. So week 1, he comes in and roll duty again because Trey's hurt. Does a great job then, and then comes in last week and plays a good game as well. So I think Dorian Strong, it wouldn't surprise me if he's a guy towards the end of the season that might get a fair shake and maybe a shot. And who knows, maybe he takes that cornerback 2 job from Trey. I don't think Trey's done a bad job by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, he's not the same Trey White of years ago that that's a few fans still think we have. And then just to look at some stats real quick, 2025 this year, 9th overall defense, 2nd in the pass, which is a little bit surprising, last in the run. We bring up the Derrick Henry argument, although I think it's a fair statement to a certain extent. When we're letting the Saints run for 165 yards on the ground before or after contact, I think that kind of tells you, hey, like this run defense isn't any good. So that's definitely a concern. And 23rd on defense, 25th on defense. And then the big thing for me is this defense has always been praised with the McDermott system on taking the football away. Over 30-plus turnovers seems like it's just clockwork, just like how the Bills scores 30-plus on offense. It hasn't been the case this year through 4 games. So thus, only 4 games. But they only have 4 turnovers, which is right around middle of the pack, on pace for 17. So that's a little concerning to me. It's a thing that could be very volatile, the turnover stat. But I'd like to see this team start to have a few more turnovers. Bobby Babich, he's another guy who I think he's done a fine job. The fact his name hasn't come up a ton, I think, is also a good thing for him. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I think overall, though, I think when it's all said and done, this defense will be a 10 to 15 range. But there's definitely some areas to clean up on, but I also think it's not as bad as necessarily some of the stats like PFF says.
Just to touch on you mentioning Derrick Henry, how that might be skewing the Bills' run defense statistics. So week 1 against the Bills, Derrick Henry, 18 carries, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. Since then, combined weeks 2, 3, and 4, Derrick Henry's gone 31 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. So he basically eclipsed his last 3 weeks with his first week performance. I don't know if that says more about how defenses are adjusting to Derrick Henry, or how bad the Bills' run defense is.
Yeah, that was going to – sorry, Jake, real quick. That was going to be exactly my point. I literally looked up Derrick Henry's rushing yards since the Bills game. And that's a thing, like, we talk about in the moment, like, oh, the Ravens do this to everybody. This is what they do. Well, no, it's not. It's not what they do to everybody. Derrick Henry's been shut down, quite frankly, the last 3 weeks against 3 teams. So I think it's a – I understand why people think that and why that's something people say, but to say I think it's a loose take to just say, well, that's what they do to everybody. The Bills, what are they going to do? That's just how good the Ravens are. I think Derrick Henry's been, very below average, maybe not below average, but not the standard that he was against the Bills in that week 1.
Okay, Jake, before he takes over, I have one response to that. It's a pick your poison. It's how you want to defend the Ravens. You can go against the pass, you can go against the run, and you're probably going to be susceptible to one or the other. Derrick Henry got shut down against the Browns, but the Browns allowed 40 points against Baltimore too because Lamar Jackson killed them through the air. So it's not that like they do it against everybody. It's a pick your poison. And then Baltimore goes up against the Lions, and they were getting yardage and they were moving the ball at will, but they got in their own way. They fumbled it late. And the one thing the Lions did that many teams don't do against the Ravens is they got some pass rush. And really, I don't know if it's even fair to really grade Lamar and the Ravens offense against Kansas City because it was clear from early on in the game that Lamar was playing with an injury and he was not moving around like he normally does. And if we're being honest, Lamar Jackson with limited mobility is just an average quarterback at that point. He's only dynamic because of his legs. Yes, he can throw the ball. He has accuracy. But half of his guys are open because he can buy so much time in the pocket because teams are playing against the run and they're trying to not let him break contain. So then guys literally run wide open, which is why he's one of the most effective passers in the league. So when you have a limited Lamar Jackson playing at quarterback against a very good Chiefs defense, their entire offense fell apart. So while I do respect the numbers that you guys shared, and those numbers do have some merit, like the Bills defense did do horrible against Baltimore. And to say that they do that every game is hyperbole and an exaggeration. It also is kind of disingenuous to say, well, these other 3 teams shut them down because that's not exactly the truth either.
Speaking
fair.
of the Ravens, they're not going to be doing much to anybody for the next few weeks because Lamar Jackson is expected to be out 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
with that hamstring injury.
Cooper
and
Rush.
honestly, hamstring 2 to 3 weeks, like that they should probably be sitting him 4 to 6 weeks, but they're gonna need him back in 2 to 3 weeks. That's a thing that's gonna linger all year long with Lamar, and I think that we were talking about. We want to get into the outlook of the AFC and everything else. that is a big thing into it, regardless of when he comes back, because I can't imagine that that's not something that he's managing now throughout the entire season. But it is interesting with how the Bills, did look in that game against the Ravens and everything else, because I think as much as it is the Ravens too, the Ravens are one of the least efficient rushing years they've ever had with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. But the Browns are the best run defense in the league, and the Lions are top 10 in the league at that too. So might have been game script a little bit with KC, might have been just the other teams being a more stout defense than the Bills are and built that way too. But you know what the Browns and Lions both have that really kind of add to that is dominant defensive lines. And that's where it comes back to me is and that's why I wanted to touch on that with you, Carson, because you didn't mention anything about that, and I wanted to hear your thoughts. Just about we talked about a little bit earlier about the cohesiveness and who lays the blame. Like the linebackers have played poor. You touched on the safety play a little bit, but how much do you think, I guess, is a healthy Ed Oliver, Michael Hoyt coming in and really making an impact? And I'll just touch it with those, and Ogunjobi just as an option. Like, how much of those guys improving the floor and the ceiling of the defensive line, just improving the play overall, will you think that has on the defense, going forward? Like, is that the reason that fans shouldn't be concerned, because there's still so much unknown with what that unit can be and how much it unlocks the rest of the defense?
I think that's a really, really good question. It's a little tricky to answer because we haven't seen Hoyt and Ogunjobi necessarily play in our style when it really matters in regular season. I guess to start with Ed, though, the player that we do know a lot about, he's an absolute beast. When he's on it, he's on. Jake, you said it earlier in the broadcast. Has difficult times going game to game and stringing that consistency of dominance together. But when you have him, he definitely makes your run defense better. There's no doubt about it. He's a dominant player when he's on his game. And as far as Ogunjobi and Hoyt's he's a hell of an athlete. A guy converted from but you could put him at linebacker, quarterback, spy. He's also can play edge. I have a lot of high expectations for him. I don't think he had a great preseason when he was playing some guys in the fourth quarter that weren't even close to making NFL rosters. But he still, I have high expectations for when he comes back. I think Sal Capaccio knows better than anybody. He's around that team. He is very into that locker room and everything like that with the coaching staff. So I think if he says that they're have a lot of high expectations and they're very high in him, I think that's a good tell. And then Ogunjobi, I don't know. If TJ Sanders didn't start the year on such a disappointing note, I don't know how high Ogunjobi is on the Bills' radar. He was the guy that they didn't really know about the whole drug test situation thing that was going on there. So I don't know if they were huge fans of that being openly said, hey, if we knew both of you guys were going to get suspended, one of you wouldn't get signed. So if you would have to figure that it would be Ogunjobi, considering they knew Michael Hoyt was going to get that suspension. So overall, that's an unfortunate spot to be in. Go out and spend some money on those guys that help bolster your line. You don't get them till week 7. So it's going to be tough. I don't know. I'm confident in that defensive line. I think Deion Walker is just an incredible surprise. The kid's a beast. I'm so excited to see how he can possibly turn out into a player as big as he is, the way he moves. And it was a great pick by Bean. A year ago, before his draft year, he was projected to be probably a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Had a fractured back and then kind of tried to play through the injury, played subpar, and then just fell to the 4th round. So that's a really low-risk, high-reward type of play, and it looks like the high reward's paying off. So I have full confidence in him. Jordan Phillips, to be honest with you, it was very disappointing to watch him play against the Saints. There were 3 or 4 plays where I saw him get driven back 7 yards down the field with his head turned. Where's the football? That can't happen. I get he's a practice squad guy. There shouldn't be expectations, but if you're out there, that says something. So we'll have to see. But I think it certainly can't hurt you to get Michael Hoyt, Larry Ogunjobi back in the lineup. And then Ed Oliver, I want to see him fully healthy. Like AJ said, 80% Ed Oliver, you got to have him 100%. You give him the big contract. That's a guy you have 100% expectation in. You better have 100% health from him as well. So we'll have to see. But I don't think the run defense is that good to begin with. They're just a lighter team and how they love to play nickel. That's always kind of been the motto when it comes to the McDermott defense and how it's built. But I'll say they probably finish anywhere from 18 to 25 and at the end of the year when it comes to run defense. It'll get better, but it's still going to be a weakness.
You mentioned Hoyt and Ogunjobi coming back week 7. That just happens to be fortuitously when the Bills had their bye, so a little bit of an extra
Week 8,
time for
though.
them to. Yeah,
Good
well,
catch.
the Bills week 7's the bye. Week 8's when they the first game that they're eligible to play. So a little fortuitous to get them integrated, however much they need to.
This is a fair point by Steve, but also their last 3 quarterbacks are Spencer Rattler, Tua Tagovailoa, and half of Justin Fields, half of Tyrod Taylor. So like that, let's see what happens like this week. Drake May, much better quarterback than anybody they faced in the last 3 weeks. Michael Penix and the Falcons at home, much better than anybody they faced. They're going to really get tested coming up. Stephon Diggs had 6 catches, 101 yards last week, guys. That's all I'm saying. Like the Patriots are finding ways to move the ball that Drake May has been able. He's played pretty clean, honestly. So I don't know. I'm not saying that the Bills pass defense isn't that good, but the last 3 weeks of quarterbacks is not who I would base it on.
You know what's interesting, Jake?
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, you finished your point. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and Lamar played decent, but we talked about it already that the run game was what the Ravens were able to do more effectively week 1. Go ahead, Mike.
What I was gonna say is like it's clear the run defense is very bad right now. Like not just bad, but very, very bad. And teams are gonna all point to that as this is how we exploit the Bills defense and move the ball downfield. But I know the game has changed, and we've talked about like it's a good thing to run the ball more. That's how you move against some of these defenses. But that kind of plays into the Bills' hands if teams continue to do this. Like we mentioned about how poor they've been against the run, but still in the last 3 games, granted, not amazing offenses, they held the Jets to 10. They held the Miami Dolphins to 21, and they held the Saints to 19. That's a total of 50 points in 3 games. That's under 17 points a game during that stretch of games. So while we're all worried, and rightfully so, like it is, and I don't think the DVOA is going to love the Bills defense, or the EPA is going to love the Bills defense. At the end of the day, like when you know your offense can consistently score 30 points, if you're holding teams to 17, 18 points a game, you're really doing your job. Now, even the yards per game, I know like there's better metrics than yards per game in the points allowed per game. Like we need to look at the EPAs and the yards per drive, the yards per play, all that type of stuff. But the Jets struggled to get 150 yards. Like Justin Fields threw for like 27 yards an entire game. Spencer Rattler, it felt like he was dissecting the Bills defense at times. He only threw for like 111 yards. Mm-hmm. And then Miami, you're going up against Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and their answer was, we need to run the ball against you. So what does that also kind of say? Like it shows that teams feel like this is the way to move the ball, but that's actually going to help the Bills, because if even the dynamic teams decide to run the ball, opponents are never going to be able to get big leads on the Bills, which keeps the Bills in the games. Like there's 2 ways of looking at it. One way is opponents are never going to be able to pull away from the Bills. So the Bills will be in almost every game. And do you trust Josh Allen or an opposing quarterback to make the plays when it matters the most? The other way to look at it is if they kill clock, they can limit the Bills' opportunities. And if the Bills' offense wastes possessions like they have in the past, maybe mediocre teams can steal games. But with how effective the Bills have been running the ball themselves and the way that their efficiency has just been off the wall in the last year and a half, the strategy of trying to just run and kill the clock against the Bills, it's a very low probability strategy for most teams. So there's a lot of things to be critical of, but I think a lot of opponents are playing right into what the Bills want them to, despite the Bills being awful defensively in the process as well.
Yeah, I can say that looking at the EPA per rush, Bills ranked 29th in the EPA per rush, 0.1. EPA per pass, they're 11th. It's negative 0.06. So, yeah, I mean, just the philosophy of the game, you're going to get more yards per play passing than running, unless your passing game is really that bad. And I think the Bills figured that out, and they're willing to sacrifice a little bit in the run to defend the pass a little bit more often. AJ, what do you think?
I'm going to ask Geetsy's question. Do you have more faith? It's a great question. Do you have more faith in the Bills' run defense getting better, getting it together by the playoffs, or the Sabres to make the playoffs? That is like, you could ask this question like the last 6 years. I would say that I'm more confident in the Bills, probably the Bills' run defense getting it together. Just because, they have Sean McDermott, who's supposed to be, this defensive mastermind that, gets it done. So I want to say that the Bills' run defense getting it together is more likely, or I have more faith in that. Sabres, I have to see it. And I don't know. We'll see what Sabres.
Promotion time. Crossing Swords podcast debuts Thursday for the regular season. Make sure to watch.
How you doing, Carson, out there? Yeah, I would say getting Hoyt and Ogunjobi. I'm going to be waiting on that before I make a final evaluation. And of course, the Bills usually have these early to mid-season swoons as far as overall team performance. You just got to give them until like mid-season to see how they adjust themselves.
Well, let's look big picture. Let's get real big picture here because we want to think about the AFC outlook quick. Well, Bunt did, and then he left. So we'll start with Carson here as I bring up the poly market odds because the Bills, this is kind of crazy, guys. 36% chance the odds are saying here for the Bills to be the AFC champion. AJ's Kansas City Chiefs at 15% there, hanging around. Baltimore, even with that's the Baltimore thing, and I don't know that market probably moves over the next couple of days with Lamar's injury news coming out fully today. It's probably still sticking there a little bit, but I don't know. I'm really worried. Carson, you tell me, man. I want to hear from you. Like, how worried should Ravens fans and how worried should you be about Lamar trying to battle back from a hamstring injury if it's that bad that he's missing multiple weeks? I just feel like it's probably a KC, LA, Buffalo race at this point in this regard.
With a guy like that, hamstring injury doesn't hurt anybody more at quarterback in the league more than it does Lamar Jackson, just because of how versatile he is and how much he depends on his legs. And we talked about it. That's an injury. He might be good to go in 2 weeks, but that's going to be an injury that's going to plague him for, I'm not a doctor, but let's say 2 months. That's going to be something that he's going to be focused on all year long. And that's a soft muscle injury like that. It's not like a broken bone where all of a sudden it's a complete different injury. So that's going to be something that affects him and his play style the rest of the year, I think. And that's huge in their game. Todd Monken, I'm kind of concerned about their offense because when you think about their backup quarterbacks over the years, it was Huntley, and then they even had Trace McSorley come in, Bills legend, Anthony Brown as well. So with all the backup quarterbacks that they've had over the years, they've all been replicates. They're not Lamar Jackson. I understand that. Thank you. But their play styles are similar. So now with Cooper Rush, I think they're going to have to come back to a more traditional play action type of passing game in a normal type of offense compared to their heavy RPO, rollouts, read options, spread look. So with Cooper Rush, it'll be interesting. Todd Monken's a great offensive coordinator. I have faith, but when you start quarterbacks out like that and the way your defense has been playing, Baltimore, and you're 1-3 already, that's brutal. I think for them, at this point, you're just hoping to get into the playoffs. They started the year slow last year, but this isn't the same Baltimore team, in my opinion. I think Baltimore is a team that's looking for that anywhere from 5 to 6 range, probably for playoff seeding, if they're lucky. And then as far as Kansas City is concerned, they don't have a run game like whatsoever. So that makes them different. Their defense has been carrying them throughout a majority of this year. We saw them shut down an injured Baltimore team, and their defense has been pretty stout all season long. So Mahomes, he's coming off a great outing. As Mike Bunt would say, it doesn't matter, but Xavier Worthy and Rice being back, it is notable. That's something that you got to keep an eye on with them because it allows them to do a lot more offensively. But the fact that they don't have a run game is I'm not that worried about them. The Chargers, they just lost the Giants. Like, really good football teams don't lose to a quarterback making his first career start. So with them, it's a team that I'm circling, though, is Pittsburgh. They're a well-coached team with Mike Tomlin. Pair that with the veterans that they have. Rodgers seems like he still has some left in the tank. DK is coming off a great game as well. The run game is there at times. Kenny Gainwell's had a pretty solid start to the season. Their defense is They can get after the quarterback between Watt, Highsmith. So it's the Bills to lose right now, without a doubt. That's why they have a 36% chance. They're favored in every model pretty much. So, hey, you got to be thrilled with this, because the one thing they haven't tried yet, and when it comes to the playoff failures, has been the 1 seed. And the 1 seed's an incredible advantage to have. And having this much of a lead this early in the year and having the schedule that they have going the rest of the way, if they can stay healthy, there is zero reason why the Buffalo Bills shouldn't have the 1 seed. And if they don't have the 1 seed this year, barring an extraordinary reason, that is 100% a disappointment.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on the fact that how beat up the Ravens are right now. They came into the Kansas City game missing 3 defensive linemen and their linebacker Kyle Van Noy. And then throughout the course of the game, not just Lamar Jackson, they lost Roquan Smith, linebacker, and at least a couple of cornerbacks, Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. So they're just beat up to heck right now. And I feel like doing some what are those percentages? Those are Super Bowl championships.
There's a Super Bowl odds now.
Before they had like a 13% chance to our 36% chance. I feel like doing Scott Steiner math and saying we gotta add their 13% chance to our 36% chance, because they know they can't beat us and they're not even going to try. But obviously they did try pretty darn well in week 1. Super Bowl odds. And you saw Baltimore trending downward. I couldn't read how small the numbers were, how much they're going downward.
For you.
You know what? I'm going to defer to Bunt, because he's Mr. Vegas now. He's going to tell us all the secret math and the analytics and all this stuff that they keep locked behind closed doors in Fort Knox or whatever, why they know these things. So go ahead, take it away, Bunt.
I got a long spiel, but I know AJ wanted to get his point in, so I'm going to let AJ talk, because once I get talking, I don't know stop. So AJ, you go first, man.
So Carson said he'd circle the Ravens as a team. I'm going to cross them out for him. The Steelers to me aren't a threat at all. I think, I do like
the Steelers are paper tigers. They've been 9-8 paper tigers every year, but go ahead.
Yeah. They're going to be, a 10-win team and get to the wild card, but Rodgers to me, they're just so limited offensively. And I know they've done some things, nicely, and they've been able to run the ball, and the defense is playing better after the first 2 weeks that were atrocious. So I guess they could, scare some teams down the stretch. But I think for me, it's just the same old story. I think Rodgers, DK Metcalf he is unreal. He is like unreal. That catch he took against Minnesota to the house, missed a ankle tackle from Harrison Smith, and he just beat the rest of the secondary down the sideline. So he's special. But to me, the Steelers just aren't a team that they just breed a wild card exit. And me and Bunt talked about that before the show. We were just talking about the AFC. In terms of the Ravens, Partham, I was actually looking at the Ravens injuries. I was going to bring those up, but they have a lot. I'm bad. Matabuke is now out for the year. He's one of their best defensive tackles. Their best defensive tackle. And he's a guy that, has been a double-digit sack getter before. He's gone. So I think with the Ravens, the story is going to be Lamar Jackson, and it's going to be that, Cooper Rush and how they look against Houston, who they're actually underdogs against this week, and the Rams coming up. But I think the bigger story for me is the defense, and Partham did touch on it. But I think for me, it's just their inability to really stop anything. So for the Lions, ran it down their throats. The Browns, that's a different story. They have Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel getting the start here coming up. So that's interesting. But the Ravens haven't been able to stop anyone. And I know they've had a really tough schedule, and they're playing really good teams, and they got the Chiefs with Worthy back. I think that would probably been a little bit of a different defensive showing if Worthy weren't there. But I think this Ravens defense to me is the bigger story, and why I don't think they're going to be able to survive without a Lamar, because I don't think they can stop anybody. In terms of the Chiefs, they said to make the prediction on the show, so I'm going to say it now. The Chiefs will win the AFC West. I'm going to put that out there. They're going to win the AFC West. Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I'm not going to talk about what their points per game will increase. I don't know if it's 5 or 6, but with the way the Chiefs defense plays, and I think they showed it. I know Lamar was limited, but they've shown it, and we know what Spagnuolo is, and we know how they're coached and their ability to contain quarterbacks and just make plays when they need to, and how unbelievable they are in 4th and short situations and getting the ball back. The Chiefs don't have to average 30, in my opinion, to be successful. I think the addition of Worthy and Rice will take this offense to the next level, and I think we'll see a better Patrick Mahomes, and I think it'll open up things for the entirety of the offense. So that's what I'm going to go off with the Chiefs. I still think they're going to be the biggest threat to the Bills down the stretch. The Bills and Chiefs play each other, and the Chiefs have a tough one this week against the Jags. We'll see how they look and how they respond to a very, big win that kind of, I don't want to say save their season, but it really put them back into the, I think, conversation in my mind that they're still the same old Chiefs in my opinion, and I think they're a team that's going to, again, the Bills are going to have to get past them at one point. I think they're going to play them again in the playoffs. I'm out in the Ravens. I'm not out in the Ravens, but I don't think they're going to be a team that the Bills are going to have to worry about just with all the injuries. It just doesn't feel like it's their year. 1-3 start, 2 tough games coming up. I just don't think they're the team. But for me, it's the Chiefs still, and it always will be until the Bills can get past them when it matters.
Yeah, the Chiefs are the vampire they're going to have to make sure is dead before they, go on. But I can hear Mike Bunt screaming in his own mind, what's Rice going to do when he gets back? Because we've been going back and forth with the text on that. So I'll let you go off about that, and I'll let you go off about how you interpret all these playoff and Super Bowl odds.
I wish I had some props with me because I could say, we're talking about Rice. And
Dude, I had to turn my
I had couscous for dinner. I didn't have rice, unfortunately. AJ, you made a lot of great points, but you always get one thing wrong every time you speak. So, unfortunately, this time for you, it was saying they're the same old Chiefs. Like, that's just not the case. Now, they might go to the AFC Championship. They might look good. They might make a run. But they're not the same old Chiefs. And we'll see that sooner rather than later. Hey, I don't even know if the Chiefs are going to beat Jacksonville next week. But what am I saying? I'm just putting wild things out on the internet.
Would you agree with the point that the Chiefs have been more reliant on their defense the last couple of years, and it's the same case this year?
Yes, 100%. Yes. Like Spagnuolo's their true MVP. Everybody talks about Reid and Mahomes. Spagnuolo
11-44 as a head coach, though. So.
Yeah, Spagnuolo. Yeah, how did you know that, AJ? So this is what I'd say. A lot of people have been getting on me for looking too far ahead. With the Bills, with the odds and everything like that. And I'm not saying that Vegas knows everything. I'm not saying that they're always right, but Vegas gives you clues and metrics gives you data. And then you combine data with clues and you can kind of project things using that. This is what I would say. Everything that could have gone the Bills' way early this season has gone the Bills' way. The fact that the Ravens are 1-3. Before this loss against Kansas City, the Ravens had a 25% chance, according to Polymarket Sports, of winning the AFC Championship. Even after they lost to the Chiefs, they were at 21%, and the Chiefs were at 14%. Now this Lamar Jackson news comes out, and the Ravens fall to 13%. Why is that? It's not saying that the Ravens can't make a run in the playoffs, but that whole time, Polymarket and the bettors are assuming the Ravens are going to easily win the AFC North. They're going to get home playoff games, and then maybe they go to Buffalo and they play the Bills in the AFC Championship. Or maybe the Chiefs, they play the Chiefs, and then it's a head-to-head, and it's a 50-50 type game. Now that the Ravens are 1-3, if they lose another game to the Texans, say they lose 2 in a row to the Texans and Rams, they're then sitting at 1-5, 2-4, 2-3 games back of the Steelers. And then they have a lot of room to make up. And if they end up being a 5 seed or a 6 seed, you're talking about, say, Kansas City wins the AFC West. It could be Ravens Chiefs in the first round. It could be Ravens Chargers. It could be Ravens on the road at Pittsburgh. So now you start seeing why this complicates things. Lamar on the road in the playoffs is not the same as Lamar at home. And then it adds extra variables. So basically those odds going in half are basically saying the Ravens' path in the playoffs might be a lot more difficult than what we originally thought. That's a big hit on the Ravens. The Chiefs odds, they just shot up because they obviously got a big win over Baltimore. The problem that the Chiefs have is they're still second in the odds of winning the AFC West. Now, I'm not saying the Chargers are better than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs have a very, very difficult schedule. The Chiefs still have to play the Lions in a couple weeks. They have to play the Chargers again. They have to play the Denver Broncos twice. And while they might be better than the Broncos, there's nothing that says the Broncos can't split that pair of games. Their defense historically gives Mahomes problems. And then the Chiefs, they have a game against Jacksonville, which you look at it right now, 3.5-point line. People all betting the Chiefs to cover that fade away. That's this could be one of those trap games right before Detroit. This might be my surprise game of the week. Jacksonville over KC possibly. But
possibly. Are you picking that? You make a pick right now.
Tuesday. We'll know later in the week. No, but we'll know later in the week. But then even the Chiefs have to play the Commanders, and by that point, Jaden Daniels will probably be back. There's a lot of tough games on their schedule. So it's kind of the same thing as Baltimore. The Chargers, with one more win against the Chiefs, they get the sweep. They get the tiebreaker. They have the advantage in that situation. So if the Chiefs have to go on the road and they're playing, who knows, some of these teams on the road in the playoffs. We saw them do it before, and that was a very impressive Super Bowl run where they went through, they went through Miami at home, Buffalo on the road, Baltimore on the road, and then they beat San Fran. Amazing run. So 69% of the bets currently on KC minus 3.5 over Jackson. What does that mean? Fade away, boys. Fade away. See, this is the thing. I don't know if Jacksonville will win, but that definitely looks like a Jacksonville cover in that moment. So lock of the week, maybe. I got it right last week. But I'm just saying, like, that's some very interesting numbers. The fact that you add Baltimore and KC's percentage odds together, and they don't even equal Buffalo's odds of winning the AFC Championship. We're not talking about
Steiner math.
We're talking about winning a game in late January, and the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs odds don't even equal combined the Bills odds. That's revealing, because Polymarket is very good with this stuff, and I'm not just saying that because they sponsor me and that I contribute work to their website. But I'll just say this: Polymarket gets things right ahead of the time. I texted you guys at 10:45. Polymarket said the Ravens' odds of making the playoffs had just dipped significantly. What did we see an hour and a half later? A report coming out that Lamar Jackson might be missing the next couple games. Sometimes these people
inside information
have inside information. And to me, that's really revealing. And these people don't like to lose money. Now, I'll say some non-Polymarket odds and then upset them as a sponsor and probably get in trouble for this. You look at the Bills in the AFC East, their odds of winning the division right now are between minus 1,600 to minus 3,000. Vegas has already conceded the AFC East to the Bills. You look at the Bills' odds of getting the number 1 seed in the AFC. It's minus 195. The Bills have played 4 games. They have 13 games left to go, and they are minus 195 to get the top seed. The second highest team is the Chargers at plus 700. Like, Vegas is already conceding the 1 seed to the Bills. Then you go to some other AFC future odds. So this is from all the books. The Bills are anywhere from a plus 160 to a plus 180 to win the AFC. The Chiefs are plus 400 to plus 475. So they're not super far behind. But the Bills are basically almost even money at this point. The defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles, who are also undefeated, are plus 300 to plus 325. So a team that just won the Super Bowl is plus 300 to plus 325 to go back, but the Bills are plus 160 to plus 170. These are numbers that are the craziest numbers I've ever seen. You factor in the Joe Burrow injury. The Bengals are toast. It looks like the Ravens might be toast. Like, you look at, like, are the Colts really that great? Are the Jaguars really that great? Are the Steelers that great? Are these teams that are trying to, like, compete for those final playoff spots? They're not that good. So you basically
who's the Chargers running back that they lost for the season just now? Because I'm sure they took a shot in the odds for that.
Yeah. So, and then you look at even for the Super Bowl. The Bills right now are plus 375 to plus 440 to win the Super Bowl. Like, next up is the Eagles. The next 3 teams are all NFC teams. It's the Eagles, the Lions, and the Packers. The second best AFC odds for the Super Bowl are the Chiefs at plus 1,000. Like, I'm telling you, these numbers.
One question I have for you, Bunt, about these numbers, because I do think I think everything you're saying is spot on. But what would be if you? I don't know how you quantify this. I don't think we could ever quantify this. How much of it is because the Bills are now a public team? Like, people love the Bills. People love to bet on the Bills. They love to bet on Josh Allen. Everyone's picking them to win, and they've set those odds, and people don't bet on them.
Vegas doesn't care about that. Vegas cares about making money. That's what they care about. And yes, like, people love the Bills, but there's people across the country, believe it or not, that love the Chiefs. And there's people that love the Ravens. And there's people all over the place that love what they love. The point of this is what the biggest takeaway is. The reason why the Bills odds are so incredible right now, it's not that people believe the Bills are a way better team than the Eagles, or that the Bills are a way better team than the Ravens, or that they're way better than the Chiefs. It's that so much has already happened involving the AFC race that the Bills basically already slot into where people expect them to go. Their odds of getting that 1 seed are so astronomically high right now, which is crazy after 4 weeks, that basically people can already slot the Bills in, because the assumption is, with their light schedule, with their toughest games being Kansas City and Philadelphia, like on the road, like look at the Bills' road schedule. It's a joke. Like they would have to blow a game on the road to lose to any of those opponents.
Atlanta's not a joke.
What?
Atlanta's not a joke.
They have Bijan Robinson. That's going to fit right into the Bills.
I'll just say this. You can say, okay.
Besides that, though, I'd agree. Besides that.
No NFL team is technically a joke. But when you're talking about the Falcons, their over-under is 8.5 wins. The Patriots, 8.5 wins. The Bills are 13.5 wins with their over-under. So, yes, they're not a joke. But they're a game that the Bills are going to be a 7-point favorite on the road against. So the point of it is this. The Bills are favored in every single game the rest of the season. His prediction before the year, 15-2, that might come true. Like at this point, like there's a better chance of the Bills going 15-2 than them going 11-6 right now. So basically, I'll wrap it up like this. The odds makers know that unless Kansas City goes on some crazy run, the Bills are the 1 seed. And that is why the Bills have all these odds in their favor, because what have the Bills not had at all during the playoffs? Home field throughout. They have always had to go on the road for like some point in time outside of the divisional. I know the divisional losses against Cincy and Kansas City, but if they wanted to go to the Super Bowl, most of the time they have to go on the road. The fact of it is this. Kansas City and Baltimore are both going to have tough roads to get to the Super Bowl. The Bills might potentially benefit, and they might get a bye on top of it. And if the Bills are playing a team like the Colts in the divisional round, they might have an easier path to the AFC Championship. And then you have that at home on top of it. That just might be what the Bills need to get to the Super Bowl. Now, I'll say this is the final thing I'll say. Kansas City is their biggest threat right now. AJ is right on that. Kansas City is their biggest threat because the Chiefs, they know how to beat the Bills when it matters the most. I'm not worried about the Chargers. I'm not worried about Pittsburgh. I'm not worried about the Colts, Jacksonville, anybody in the AFC East. The Chiefs are the only team I'm currently worried about, and Baltimore can rejoin that conversation depending on what happens the next couple months. But Baltimore is going to need to have to hope that Cooper Rush keeps them afloat, because if they fall to 1-5, if they somehow crumble to a point where they're 1-5, they're going to have to go 9-2 down the stretch just to make the playoffs. And as great as Lamar Jackson is, that is a tall task to ask for that team. And let's be real, if somehow one of Kansas City or Baltimore, just one of them misses the playoffs, how are you going to feel going in? Especially if the other one ends up being a wild card. Say Baltimore misses the playoffs and Kansas City's a wild card. And Kansas City is going on the road in the first round as a 5 seed, and they're playing the Chargers. Or flip it. Maybe Kansas City wins the AFC West, but they go 10-7. And the Chargers go to Kansas City in the first round. Like, you could have a scenario where the Bills don't avoid their biggest competition. So it's early. A lot can change. But the odds are saying that they pretty much think the Bills are going to have a very, very, very manageable potential run to a Super Bowl. And if they screw it up, I mean, then let's just fire Sean McDermott, move on, and go forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, with all these odds ever in their favor, if they screw up this year, and
like if you couldn't do it.
Yeah, obviously the calls for Sean McDermott, you know, the extreme ones for Sean McDermott being fired is obviously a little premature at this point. You guys did see my hypothetical scenario in the chat. If the Bills were to decide for one reason or another to move on for Sean McDermott, Steve Spagnuolo is right there, and not only is he seems to be a capable coach, you can take that defensive genius away from the Chiefs. Obviously, and Bunt, you pointed out, most people are asking for an offensive guy. As long as the Bills have Josh Allen and they have James Cook, they can move their offense pretty well. And it seems like they need the most help defensively right now as it is anyway. But anyway, I'm going to dip out a little early, guys. So I'm just going to give you a quick Patriots preview with what I know about them.
Yes.
Drake May is being very efficient. He's third in all overall in EPA per play. Josh Allen's second, so he's right behind him. The Patriots seem to have some trouble protecting the ball. They have 6 giveaways so far this year. That's tied for 22nd in their offense. As far as Diggs goes, I mean, he just had his breakout game for them this year with his first 100-yard game. But the media has been a little bit of they're a little bit of a standoff-ish with him because he didn't come in for voluntary OTAs. He didn't speak first day of training camp. So it's been a little. I don't know if I would want to say tense, but they're being a little cautious about how he's going to integrate into the culture there. One little nugget I saw since McDermott has been hired, all the Patriots quarterbacks, including Brady, mind you, have thrown more interceptions than touchdowns against the Bills. Now, I don't know how Vrabel is going to factor into this, if he's going to make that much of a difference. Drake May might be a little bit better than who they've had before. One vulnerability the Pats do have is their left side against the run. The Panthers were able to average 4.7 yards per carry to the left side because the Pats' defensive tackles seem to be very vulnerable to that. So not only is James Cook being very being very good feature back and obviously one of the 2 key components for the Bills offense, that's something that they can especially exploit. One thing that the Pats won't be surprised by is our 13 offense personnel when we get 3 tight ends on the field, because they did face that against the Steelers, and it seems like they were able to adjust to that fairly quickly. And one other thing of note, the Patriots are getting a cornerback Christian Gonzalez back, so somebody to favor in the passing defense. My prediction for the Patriots game, the Bills seem to be averaging 30 points a game. Obviously, the run defense is still a vulnerability. I'll say the standard 30-20 because it seems to be what they're averaging about this time. So I'll see you guys next week, and go Bills.
Thank you, Parley.
Thank you, Parthy.
Thanks, sir.
Great stuff. All right, Carson, Patriots. How do you feel, Carson? How do you feel about Drake May as a quarterback?
I think he plays the game at a really high level. I was a big fan of him coming out of UNC. He's a guy I've always liked. If we were a team that needed a quarterback at the time, I was very high on him. I think he plays the game at a high level. I think he's got plenty of potential still. They have to get some guys around him, I think. Diggs is a good piece, but he's not what he used to be when he was here or in Minnesota. And also, to continue on what Parthy was saying, they have to protect him. May's been sacked 13 times already this season. You know how many times Josh was sacked last year? 14. So they have not protected him at all. With that said, though, he still completed 74% of his passes. That's a very, very high number, even in today's NFL. 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. He takes care of the football. But the one thing about their offense, they move the ball 11th in yards, but they don't score. They're averaging 20 points per game, which is 21st best in the game. So they have an off-brand R offense as well. 5 guys have over 100+ yards receiving for them, which is similar to how we conduct things. A lot of guys get the balls in different ways. Pop Douglas is a guy who I really like for them. I think he's a dangerous type of player. And then defensively for them, 30th in the pass D. This is a great opportunity for the Bills offense. I get they get Christian Gonzalez back this week. It's a great opportunity for the Bills offense to show, hey, like we still have a little bit of explosiveness down the field. I think Jake, you showed a great clip of it on Twitter. I think he did get a little impatient. I think, I heard him in the press conference last week saying, we're just taking what's given. We're winning football games. Whenever I hear him acknowledge there is stuff from outside, I get a little nervous about that. I thought at times he got a little uberly aggressive, wasn't necessarily taking the read that was there for him. But overall, it's a game where they're second in the run defense too for the Pats. It's a strength for a strength situation. So something's going to have to give there. It's either their run defense is going to give or our run offense is going to slow down a little bit. So this is a difficult opponent. I think with the Patriots, I think this is a game after New Orleans where you played a C+ type of game. I think this is where New England gets gassed up a little bit by this coaching staff from McDermott. Hey, if you play at the level that you played last Sunday, you're not going to win the football game, that type of thing. And I think Buffalo feeds off of that really, really well. I don't think New England's there yet. I still think they're a year or two away from competing. And with that said, I think this is a game where the Bills come out. It's close to start. Bills just absolutely pull away in the second half, just out of the mere factor that they didn't play a great game last week. And I think New England's coming off a game where they were high. My wall just got smashed super hard by the person next door. I'm sorry if you heard that. But final score prediction, give me the Bills 37-17 against New England on Sunday night.
Yeah, Carson made a lot of good points. He brought up the New England run defense. They allow 3.3 yards per rush, which is second in the NFL. And they only allow 77.5 rushing yards per game, which is also second in the NFL. And they only allow half a half of a rushing touchdown per game, which is third in the NFL. So not many running backs are finding the end zone in the red zone either. So I think, like Carson said, it's going to be the Bills' strength, which is running the ball right now, versus the New England Patriots' strength, which is, defending the run. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out. I think the Bills should try and move the ball in the air a little bit more. I do want to see that eventually. I already said that. I want to see them take a couple shots, test defenses deep. I know it's smart, and I know they don't turn the ball over, and I know it resulted in a turnover against the Saints, and it was a good play by the safety. But I think they do still need to show it, because I just need to see it to prove that they can do it, because it's gonna happen. The defenses are going to adjust to what the Bills are doing, and make them kind of beat them in ways that they're not used to as of right now. But I like this Patriots team. I like Drake May. I thought he played well last week against Carolina, a bounce back performance. Pittsburgh, they were just turning the ball over a crazy. Ramondre Stevenson fumbled right at the goal line in that game. So I thought the Patriots really lost that game more than the Steelers won it. And obviously they bounced back with Vrabel and get the big win against Carolina. But it's a good New England Patriots team. I still think they are a year away. I could see them sneaking in as a wild card team. I have them on like that Steelers tier, in my opinion. But I think this is a big game for them, for Patriots fans. I think they're going into it like this is really where what is this team? Because through 4 weeks it's kind of been iffy. They won, lost, one loss, so it's kind of been they're 2-2. So I think this is a big test for them, and to see where they're at from a Patriots perspective. From the Bills, you got to handle business. You have to again move the ball through the air, attack that secondary. I know Christian Gonzalez is coming back, like Partham mentioned. So that will be interesting to see how he looks coming back from injury. But I really want to see the Bills attack the New England through the air. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down another fourth quarter game. How will the Bills be situationally? I'm going to pick the Bills 24-23. I don't think they get to 30. And I think it's going to be a divisional battle where the Patriots really test the Bills and they're able to make the plays that maybe the Saints weren't able to, or maybe the Jets weren't able to maybe keep them in those games, even the Dolphins. I think they're a better team, and I think the Bills will be really pushed to the breaking point, but I still think the Bills will come out on top.
Yeah, this should be an interesting game. It's never easy against divisional opponents, and I don't expect it to be easy on Sunday night. Just following some of the lines and everything that is showing right now, Bills are favored by 7.5. Over-under is 49.5. I think this is pretty much giving away the score of the game. I could tell you without telling you one thing about the Patriots what the final score is going to be on Sunday night. It's going to be Bills 28-21, because they're not going to that 7.5 is interesting. I don't think the Bills are going to cover, and then with the over-under, I think it's going to be just short of going for the over. So 28-21, that's a 49 points total, and it's a 7-point spread. So I look at the Patriots kind of similar to what AJ does. Right now, 2-2. They've played respectable football. On one end of things, they realistically could be 4-0 right now. They really could be. They blew a game against the Raiders, an interesting Raiders team that, like, you could argue about their record as well, but they can't lose that game to open against the Vegas. Like, that's an unacceptable loss for them, and that might be one that ends up killing their playoff chances later this season. And then the Steelers game, they gave the ball away in so many bad situations, an interception in the end zone, a fumble into the end zone. Like, if you just take care of the ball, you finish those drives, or even if you get a field goal on one of them and you get a touchdown on the other, you win that game, and you're 3-1, 4-0, you're feeling good. And worst case scenario, you're thinking, well, we're going to at least get into a wild card spot down the line. But this is tough, because for a team like the Patriots that's already blown those two games, they're really going to have to probably split one of the Bills games to have a great shot at making the playoffs. If you lose twice to the Bills, you're going to have to play really good against your other opponents, especially after giving away some winnable games. So I think New England has a good enough defense to give Josh Allen some problems at times. We've seen them be able to confuse him in the past. That said, like 28 points, like you're not stopping him for an entire 60 minutes. So we'll see what happens. I expect Vrabel to try to pound the rock, do what he did when he was the Titans head coach, try to just basically run over the Bills defense. That seems to be the way every head coach is thinking right now. Keep the clock going, try to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. We'll see how it ends up playing out. Drake May, I think he has the chance to be an above-average solid quarterback in the NFL, but we really don't know yet. It's still too early in Drake May's career to really speculate where he is. He's at least we all know he has the potential right now, and I think he's shown the flashes. But can he take it from flashes and potential and actually now show that like he is a very good above average quarterback? His numbers through 4 weeks are pretty solid. So I am intrigued to see what he can end up doing. I thought it was funny that one person compared him to Josh Allen through 4 weeks because they did
was terrible.
Because they did have some comparables on a graph. But at the end of the day, if the Bills want to get that 1 seed, they take care of business in games like this. They take care of business against teams like Atlanta, Carolina, and you lose this game, well, then some people's opinions and perceptions of the Bills are going to be different going forward. So it's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. The whiteout's going to be crazy overall. I think the Bills get it done and move to 5-0. And let's be real, like during this stretch of Sean McDermott, Josh Allen greatness, they haven't had that 6-0, 7-0 start. There's always that point in late September or October where they falter and they drop a game here. Sometimes it's 2 in a row. If they can get past this month of October and really go into Kansas City 7-0, the Bills normally play their best football in November and December. And that should be a scary thing for a lot of opponents, because if the Bills can hit their stride at that point like they normally do, who knows what they can end up finishing at. And if they get that bye, we know how the Bills are after bye weeks. They get that bye in the playoffs, we could be talking about a Super Bowl champion team. I feel so much differently about this team now than I have any Bills team in recent memory. And AJ, we talked about this before the season. You know, I've never picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl, even during this run. I haven't, just because it's so hard. And there's so many, even like the great teams, your probability going into a season is still very low. I've always been, you got to get past KC before I'll believe it. I just think there's something in the water this year. I told you I'm not going to pick the Bills to win the Super Bowl, but I told you I could see them winning the Super Bowl.
You choose your words. Very nice, Mike. Oh, man. Carson didn't get the whiteout memo, by the way, but that's for
no, not even didn't even come close to it today.
This was all intentional, and yes, I am very careful with my words, especially after our group chats. And
feels different, but I'm not gonna pick.
That's the equivalent of when Sal called out Maniac on the radio for the Tampa Bay leak, where he's like, "Well, it's Maniac, he's trustworthy, but it's not my words, it's his." That Tampa and the Bills are meeting a week before the schedule came out. But
what's that
win-win for Bunt there? Start PR move.
What is it, like plausible deniability? Like, so
yes,
like when the Bills don't end up winning the Super Bowl, you're like, Mike, you said they would win the Super Bowl. No, I said they could win the Super Bowl.
I could see it happening.
I could see it happening.
I'm a journalism major, man. I know this.
I'm smart enough to be careful with my words, unless it involves picking the Sabres to make the playoffs, which I learned my lesson. And it's never going to happen again.
That's a great spot to go off of there. Yeah, you guys made a lot of great points. This Patriots team, Carson, you said it. They move the ball well. They've got a lot of it's buoyed by a huge game over. A lot of these stats buoyed by a huge game last week against Carolina, but they got 13 total touchdowns offensively right now, or total touchdowns in general. That's 5th in the league. What killed them right now is they can't run the ball. They haven't been able to figure out the run game. They're only 101 yards per game rushing, but they're right behind the Bills passing offense, 7th in the NFL. So they're going to put a lot on May, which honestly makes me think, like, McDermott, and it's not a rookie quarterback, with young quarterbacks has been able to put guys like this in tough situations, put them in a blender. The quarterbacks the last couple of weeks under 200 yards passing. So if they can do that again to this Patriots offense, they should be able to stifle them. I think they're going to have a good plan for May and try to tell this team to beat them on the ground. And maybe they do. Maybe this is the week the Patriots against the Bills run defense are able to kind of figure things out. Travion Henderson has his breakout game, and that's how the Patriots win this game. But it would be flipping on the tendencies. I think the Bills defense will have a good plan for a young quarterback. The crowd's going to be crazy. Whiteout scenario, everything else. I'm going Bills 31, Patriots 17. And that's where I'm at this week. I'm dropping off my 41-7 picks after last week. Not doing that one again.
Humbling.
One more note: the Patriots have 5 fumbles this year. Ramondre Stevenson 2, Drake May 2, Antonio Gibson 1, and they also the Bills' defensive line is going to be tested again with the mobility aspect. So I want to see the gap integrity I was talking about. Drake May cannot extend drives with his legs on third down consistently in this game.
For sure. I guess just to add off of what AJ said too, their run game. I checked this morning. They have had 3 runs over 20-plus yards this year, so they aren't explosive at all in the run game, and their longest rush of the year is 22 yards. So it's not like they congratulations, we had it by 2 yards. So
they better stop
our offense, right? It's not explosive at all in the run game. But if there was a week for it to happen, it would be this week, just like how it was strength versus strength with the Bills' passing game against our running game versus their running defense. It's weakness versus weakness. So we'll have to see here. This is an interesting matchup. A lot of things to keep an eye on this week.
Absolutely. Well, we paid the bills, guys. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Parthy, who's long gone. He said, I can't do this any longer with all you guys. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Carson. Shout out to our sponsor, Picasso's Pizza. Get your Picasso's Pizza anywhere nationwide and in Western New York at picassospizzas.net. Go Bills.